Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Napoleon, and today we're back with our top 5 worst tanks in Enlisted. Of course, this video has been made possible for friends at Discord, meaning that if you haven't liked, subscribed, or joined the Discord, highly suggest that you do, because this time we're going to be doing the top 5 worst tanks. And if you haven't watched, by any chance, my previous videos on the top 5 best premium squads, or top 5 best tanks, highly suggest that you give it a watch, because those are very useful videos, and I hope you enjoyed them too. But that said, without further ado, this is the top 5 worst tanks Enlisted, and let's get started. In the number 5 spot, we have the M10, and the reason why this thing is up here is because of a lot. But before we do that, let's talk about the good things. Number 1 is the fact that the M10 has a good gun, and when I mean has a good gun, I mean it has a decent gun. It's nowhere amazing, not a Firefly gun, of course. Number 1, the gun is decent, but that's where the things stop. In terms of armor, it's pretty bad. Number 1, if you are an infantryman, all you have to do is jump on the tank, start firing at the machine gun, or should I say, start firing at the ammo, which you can actually see on the tank, and the thing will blow up like cinder. And what makes the situation worse about this tank is the thing literally has no armor, like I said. But what's worse than no armor is that at least if you have no armor, you're fast. Well, guess what? The M10 is not fast either. As a matter of fact, it's one of the slowest tanks Enlisted. And what's worse about that is the fact that this tank literally has a turret rotation speed of a snail. Well, not the Enlisted snail, but of an actual snail. Because if you're talking about the Enlisted snail, they just want your gold. But anyway, the M10 is quite slow, and in terms of every regards, and yeah, it's quite bad. The gun is decent, but it's not decent enough to get kills. And what's worse is the fact that the M10 basically can be taken out by infantry if you know what you're doing, and considering the fact that I've enlisted, yeah, most infantrymen on the German side know what they're doing. But that said, that's the M10 for you. A pretty bad tank if you ask me, and if you ask me, a pretty useless tank. In the number 4 spot, we have the Hellcat. Now, before we even get started, I would like to say that if this was not a game called Enlisted and this was a game called War Thunder, I would say this is one of the best tanks in War Thunder. Sadly, this is Enlisted and not War Thunder. The big thing about the Hellcat to why it's so bad is the fact that it has no armor. In terms of everything else, it's a massive upgrade from the M10, not in terms of armor, but in terms of armament and this massive speed. Number 1, all the issues about the Hellcat are gone. Well, all the issues from the M10 are gone except for the armor. The Hellcat has a very good gun compared to the M10. The Hellcat has a very good speed compared to the M10. The Hellcat has very good turret rotation speed compared to the M10. But what's different from the M10 is the fact that it has so little armor, and that pulling this thing is like being in a suicide thing. Not only can you be penetrated by every single thing, even small arms fire, considering the fact that the MG131 can just literally penetrate you, but any single tank you're going to come across is instantly directly going to kill you unless that tank is very bad. Needless to say, the Hellcat's main ability is to get fast, run around the battlefield, which it does excel at, but at the cost of literally having no armor, and once you get hit, you're pretty much guaranteed to die. And when I mean you're guaranteed to die, I literally mean that quite literally. Hence, I would not play the Hellcat because it has no armor. But that said, this is the Hellcat, a tank that's very fast but extremely no armor. I've played games in the Hellcat, or I should say I've captured a Hellcat, drove it around, and I literally found myself dead within the first 5 seconds because the tank has literally no armor. Any bomb, a 5-kilogram bomb, can even destroy the Hellcat. But that said, that's the Hellcat. Let's move on to the next one, and that is the Panzer II. And the reason why the Panzer II is up here is because of one thing only, and that's sadly because of the tank itself. Number 1, the turret rotation speed is quite bad, as to be expected of the early war tanks and the starting tanks. What's worse than the fact that its poor rotation speed is 20mm gun. Unlike the Soviet 20mm gun for their starting tank, the Panzer II's 20mm gun is quite bad in the sense that this 20mm gun has literally, essentially, very short burst, and that's already quite bad if you're talking about a tank that is early war. Not to mention the fact that this armor is also quite bad compared to the Soviet starting tank, which is interesting. But that said, the Panzer II is up here because of its overall bad performance, bad engine, bad armor, and its terrible gun. But that said, at least it's the starting tank, whereas the Hellcat, you have to unlock it at the very end. So that's that. Next up we have is the Ha-Go, and the reason why I completely hate this tank is because of a lack of a proper sitting machine gun, and a lot of other reasons. But let's start with the pros. The number one pro is it has decent speed. Now, considering how bad its armor is, and considering the fact that anything can just shoot through it like paper thin armor, the Hago has pretty bad speed, if you ask me. But because of its literally no armor thing, it actually has pretty decent speed. Getting onto its armor, the armor is literally trash. And when I mean trash, I mean even 50 cals can penetrate it from head on. And considering the Americans as of right now, it's quite interesting. The Chiha is quite bad. Another thing that's quite bad is the gun. The gun can't really do much, and the machine gun is even probably worse than the gun. Enlisted has been doing something to change it, so at least the machine gun's quite decent now. But the machine gun only has 20 rounds, and the gun is quite bad. Not to mention the armor is paper thin, and what makes it worse is that there is no machine gun in the turret. So that means if you're the gunner, you literally have to crawl to the machine gun and start shooting machine gun, and the machine gun isn't even 360 degrees, which is even worse. So yeah, Hago is up here because of all those reasons. Bad machine guns, bad gun, bad armor, decent speed, which is also a downside considering that it has absolutely no armor, and the fact that its machine guns and gun are actually separate. What's worse is probably the fact that you can't even use your backwards machine guns, not that it can be used anyway. But that said, that is the Hago for you. And let's get on to the worst tank in Enlisted. And that is the amphibious tank, the Kami. Being the only amphibious tank that does not require a premium squad, or bundle in this case, the Kami is very, very good when I first heard about it. And when I first heard about it, I was quite surprised. Until I gave it a few games and I realized how disastrously bad this thing was. Number one, the Kami is pretty bad in terms of river floating. As a matter of fact, I was even surprised to see this thing able to swim. That's how low my expectations were. It was able to swim, thank the Lord, but what's worse is the gun, the machine guns, and the thing. From everything that you see, the machine guns are quite bad, like I said, with all Japanese tanks. What makes this worse is this 47mm gun, which although is technically an upgrade from the Hago, I somehow felt it was a complete downgrade. What's worse is the fact that its speed. Unlike the Hago, the Kami basically has no speed whatsoever. Turning this thing is basically like turning a snail. Not the Enlisted snail, of course, like I said, because they want your gold, but the Kami is basically running around at pretty disastrous speeds. What's worse, it has potentially worse armor than the Hago, and although its amphibious capabilities are interesting, it's not the best. And yeah, that's the Kami for you. Literally an amphibious tank that I was surprised it could even swim, but an amphibious tank that basically has no speed on land, armor that is irrelevant because it's paper thin, a machine gun that's quite bad like the Hago, and essentially a gun that's probably even worse than the Hago because as of right now, even MGMCs can just one-shot you. So, that's it. That is my top 5 worst tanks list for Enlisted. What do you think of my list? Comment in the comment section down below, and I'll see you in the next one.